Richard, what is your star sign?
I will ignore that question.
I thought you might. It was just a test to make sure you're the real Richard Dawkins. One of the policies or behaviors of which you've been critical is Maori ways of knowing. What are Maori ways of knowing?
I came across this in New Zealand about a year ago, and now I suppose it is, when I found myself rushing headlong into a controversy. The then Labour government in New Zealand had implemented an education policy in which science classes were to be taught Maori so-called ways of knowing as of equal status to what they call Western science, which just means science. And so this is in the interest of sort of showing respect to the indigenous population that were indigenous for a few centuries, a couple of centuries before the British arrived in New Zealand. And so, of course, nobody could object to teaching Maori folklore or as history of New Zealand, but to teach it as science is dubious to say the least. And a group of distinguished New Zealand scientists got together and wrote a letter to a New Zealand journal called The Listener. And they then were ostracized in various ways for this heresy. And several of them were fellows of the New Zealand Royal Society, and they were threatened with expulsion from the New Zealand Royal Society. When I visited New Zealand, I was invited to lunch to speak to this group of scientists and was briefed by them. One of them had his lectures cancelled. He wasn't allowed to lecture to students because it was thought to be students were said to feel unsafe in his presence because he objected to teaching Maori folklore as science. I felt very strongly about this, and I altered the form of my talks to reflect it, and it went down quite well. I think the audiences that I spoke to seemed to agree. There's a new government in New Zealand. I think they haven't yet quite repealed that rather short-sighted policy.
What do you believe leads to this kind of bending of intellectuals to less profound or robust sources of knowledge, especially, as you say, because most people seem to want real science?
Yes, I mean, real science works. If there was some scientific value in Maori ways of knowing, then it should be taught over the whole world, not just in New Zealand, because science is universally true. And so if there is something to be learned from New Zealand folklore in the way of science, then let it be taught to everybody. But the giveaway is that it's only taught in New Zealand, and that gives away that the real motive is nothing to do with science. The motive is to show respect to an indigenous population. We're showing the wrong kind of respect.
You've been previously hated by the religious right. Now some of the science community and the culture on the left are against you as well. You lost your Humanist of the Year award. I want to ask you how that actually feels. And I know it's hard to ask a feelings question to a scientist, but I think it's worth exploring because you're going through something that I believe is part of our biological evolution in being kicked out of the tribe.
I seem to get it coming all ways, yes. I get attacked by Christians, I get attacked by Muslims, and now I get attacked by postmodern trans lobbyists and etc.
Yeah.
And all I try to do is just speak honest science, and I believe in scientific truth, and I think that scientific truth is desperately important. Skeptical, critical thinking, desperately important, and it seems to be under attack from all sides. Both of them.
That applause means I can really go for it now, right? The reason I ask about the emotional side of it is because, I mean, this has happened to me. For agreeing with you about gender, I had a book out, The Psychology of Secrets, about nothing to do with any of those things. But because I had said things about, men are men and so on, every single bookshop where I was supposed to do a talk, including at the Tate's Museum, cancelled and wouldn't.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah, off, done. And even though part of me is going, okay, I know I'm right about this, and I have a lot of friends, and my wife and everyone, are very supportive, it really hurt reading the emails from my publisher. I'm really sorry, they've cancelled.
I'm so sorry to hear that.